Cambridge United have bounced straight back to League One from League Two this year, and I'm going to explain how they've done that. And I'm going to start by apologising and holding my hands up, because pre-season I got this completely wrong. I predicted Cambridge to finish 19th, and they finished 3rd. It looked like a poor prediction from basically the first month of the season and only got worse from there. I love that I got that wrong, because it reflects the fact that Cambridge bucked the trend. It was a pretty safe bet to predict any of the 4 teams dropping down from League One to finish in the bottom half of League Two. Because with Crawley and Shrewsbury and Bristol Rovers, who all came down with Cambridge, all finishing in the bottom half, that means that in the last 4 completed seasons in League Two, 13 of the 16 relegated League One teams have finished in the bottom half, 80%. So if you pick all 4 of them to drop into the bottom half, generally you're going to be right on at least 3 of those. And that's quite an amazing thing. I don't think we should gloss over that when you drop down from League One into League Two. 4 out of 5 times, you're going to finish in the bottom half. You're going to drop even further. The relegation hangover is strongest dropping from League One to League Two. I'd be really interested to hear if there are any theories in the comments about why that might be. But Cambridge have bucked that trend. And I think the most important reason for them bucking the trend is the manager, Neil Harris. We'll get through some of the other people that need credit here, but it starts with Neil Harris for me. I think this has been a sensational year of management for Neil Harris. And he would probably point out that Cambridge are a great club in terms of those that own it and those that run it. They are a stable club. They are a club that has a good personality and I think an understanding of itself and of what's possible, realistic and ambitious. And that comes from the very top of the club. And it's very valuable for a club. It's very valuable for managers to work in clubs like that. And I think that has helped them handle relegation about as anyone could possibly handle it from League One to League Two. Even with what seemed like a big change with Neil Harris coming in, Mark Bonner, former Cambridge head coach, coming in as director of football, they've worked very, very well together. That's clear. But Harris, it starts with Harris. Just a very good manager for the level. He knows what to do. He knows how to build teams to win football matches. And the way he's done that with Cambridge this season is starting from the back. Defensively, wow, the best team in the EFL this season. 33 goals conceded in 46 games and 20 clean sheets in that time. It's absolutely sensational. One of the reasons that I predicted Cambridge to do poorly was on top of the trend of League One relegated clubs struggling in their first season back and taking some time to settle, is that I didn't perceive this squad on paper to be a particularly standout League Two squad. And the funny thing is, so many of these players have had good seasons, and we're going to detail that. The players deserve a lot of credit, but I think Neil Harris is the one that has made this team so much more than the sum of its parts. And he's done that with an excellent setup, a tactical setup where he very quickly and throughout the season identified ways for the team to get better, to put players in roles that suited them, to platform their skills and hide their weaknesses and build an excellent team unit. The cohesion, the club culture, all very, very strong. Those are some of the ways that you build a team that's more than the sum of its parts. I don't wish to be rude about the players. Let me try and explain to you why I didn't think this was a strong squad and why we should celebrate what this group of players have done under Neil Harris. Because if you look at Jake Eastwood, let's start there, the goalkeeper. He spent more time as a backup than first choice at Grimsby over the previous few seasons, has never played more than 22 games in a season until this season. At centre-back, you've got Big Game Gibbons, who has had the year of his life, has played League One, League Two football for quite a few seasons now. This is very clearly another level from Gibbons this season. Job, the centre-back, out the academy, his first full season as a Cambridge United player. Who could possibly have seen him becoming the central hub of the best defence in the EFL? It's incredible what he's done as an individual, but he has to be thanking the manager for dropping him into this system, this team. Kel Watts, good player, talented player. When he was younger, has had a half-decent EFL career so far. This, his best year by miles, a Rolls Royce of a centre-back this season. He hadn't shown that consistently previously. The wing-backs, I do like them all. Bennett, Mayer, Brophy, a decent group. Centre of the park, Don Ball has been brilliant, but he hadn't started more than 20 games in a season for 5 years before this season. So banking on him staying fit for as long as he has was a risk. Peli Raducanu, well, he hadn't signed at the point where we did our predictions, but he's obviously been a very good, reliable player for the level. And then at the top of the pitch, Ben Knight has been fantastic, has provided some massive moments, particularly 1-2 month period around the turn of the year. He was an incredible player for Cambridge, an X factor for them. Only 4 career league starts before this season. Has admitted that he was thinking of retiring because his career was going not the way that he wanted it to go. How amazing is that he has now been basically a star attacking player for a promoted team? Incredible. Sully Kaikai, he's been around these leagues for a while. He's always been a pretty hot and cold player. I'd argue he was pretty hot and cold this season as well, but he's been a big attacking player for them. And at the top of the pitch, one striker that scores loads but can't stay fit in Shane Lavery, that only played like 1,000 minutes. And then another striker in Louis Appere, who's generally fit but doesn't really score. And at his best offers a bit more than that, but I know is coming for some criticism with fans this season. So again, not trying to pick on the players as such, but I'm trying to explain why before the season started, you wouldn't necessarily have thought that this group of individuals would be a top 3 team because, quite frankly, almost all of them have had by far their best years of their career. And when that happens on this scale, that has to come back to what the manager has done. And that's why I keep coming back to Neil Harris and the job that he's done this season. The other players, the sort of fringe players that supplemented the first team outside of that core that I've just run through, Ben Purrington, Michael Morrison, Corey Smith, Shane McLaughlin, maybe there's something in that, the fact that those guys who didn't play loads but filled in when they were needed, they're all very experienced players. They didn't pad out the squad with youngsters and loanees. They actually padded out the squad with veterans, veteran leadership. And I wonder if that helped them at times throughout a difficult season. So what Harris has got out of that group of individuals is absolutely astounding. It's a managerial masterclass. Now, they go back up to League One. And last time they were there, and Mark Bonner took them up from League Two to League One, they were there for 4 seasons. And they suffered the pretty standard life cycle of a League Two team of a certain size and fan base that gets promoted into League One. And that cycle is, first season, you tend to do pretty well. You certainly tend to stay up. The players that have got you up play well enough with each other that they can go again and they can reach, the top of the bottom half, maybe, as a bit of a ceiling. And then the problem is that a lot of the players that you've come up with, if they've impressed in League One, and if they were only ever on 2-year contracts, which is generally the length of a contract for a League Two player, they are probably leaving you for a team that's going to be able to pay them more. And that's something that you've got to handle. You then have to buy or replace them with a whole new squad. But in this instance, you're now a small fish in a much bigger pond, and winning at recruitment in those circumstances is very, very difficult. So things get tough. The manager that took you up gets sacked eventually because, frankly, he's probably being punished for his own high standards that he set by taking you up in the first place. You try and replace him with other managers. It doesn't really work. There's only so much they can do. You suffer what I call a gravitational relegation. And Cambridge are going back up into that league. And can they avoid that same cycle again? Well, frankly, it's going to be really hard. League One is probably harder now than it was last time Cambridge were there. Certainly financially, the costs of League One squads have gone up massively over the last few years. Initially without anyone really noticing, and now there's a lot of concern across League One owners that costs are far too high, that they are spending 40% more than they were 3 years ago on basically the same types of players, the same groups of players. It's not like the squads themselves have got notably stronger, but the water level has risen financially. And when you're Cambridge United, who, let's be honest, they still have generous owners who still foot the bills and foot the losses, but they are not the sort of owners that are happy to lose 5-10 million over a couple of years. And that's why Cambridge need to be relatively sustainable, or at least prudent. Now, I think there's a good case study for why you can still succeed in that circumstance, and that's Lincoln City. And they have to be the blueprint for Cambridge United. But even if you're trying to follow that blueprint, you have to understand that Lincoln City's season, this season, was only the culmination of 4 good seasons of slow, methodical, but definitively good decision-making and recruitment and patience. And so you will probably benefit in time if you can do that. But you might say, well, you need to focus on the here and now. You need to make sure that you don't take your eye off the ball. You need to make sure that you stay up and then you establish themselves again. So it's going to be pretty difficult. You know, they'll need to finish above Bromley, you think. MK, I think, will shoot off into the distance with their budget. Whoever wins the League Two playoffs, Cambridge will be in competition with them, of course. And those that just stayed up from League One last year will be vulnerable. Burton, Wimbledon spring to mind in particular. I mean, what sort of shape will Leicester City be in? We genuinely don't know. They're obviously going to be a massive team for the level, but the rot there and the issues that they have had may well continue into League One. I think that they've got Jobe, Watts and Bennett with contracts running to the end of next season. So that's the scenario that I spoke about, where if those three don't sign on an extension, and I'm not really sure there's much in it for them to sign an extension, I'm afraid, if they're thinking about themselves and they're thinking about their career. 40 League One games for Jobe, for Watts, 40 more for Bennett, probably to a lesser extent, and they're on a free transfer at the end of that. They're going to get gobbled up by richer clubs. So I hope I'm explaining in a clear way why I think it's just such a difficult promotion. It's so difficult to kick on from this point if you're Cambridge. But I'm going to finish on a real positive. I was pleased to go down to the Abbey for the game against Grimsby. I really enjoyed my trip there. I loved the atmosphere at the ground. From what I understand from people that I spoke to, the amazing guys from the Under the Abbey Stand pod, you know, I do feel very positive about the club. I think it's an exciting time for the club. Attendances are as high as they've ever been, despite relegation from League One. They stayed at a good level this year. I believe that from the ownership to the CEO, to the director of football, to the manager, they have really smart, hard-working people who are realistic but ambitious. And I think that is quite a good combination. I get a good feeling about Cambridge from the collective, but also from the individuals involved. Of course, Neil Harris has left Cambridge once, and they've got to hope that he won't leave again. And I do think there's probably more chance that he will stay because he knows he's onto a good thing and clearly has a big connection with the club. But the strength of squad worries me again. I'm sorry to say it. I was proven entirely wrong by this Cambridge United team this season in League Two. But my concerns about the strength of the squad, the individual players, the depth in all positions really, really worries me. And therefore, Cambridge need a massive summer of recruitment as a small fish in a scary pond. Let's see how they go. Cambridge United's 25-26 promotion. That's my analysis of it. It'd be great to hear from some Cambridge fans in the comments. And yeah, be covering you in the League One segment next season. Go out.